Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS reminds taxpayers to make April 15 estimated tax payment. IR 2021-78, April 8, 2021, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today reminded self-employed individuals, retirees, investors, businesses, corporations, and others who pay their taxes quarterly that the payment for the first quarter of 2021 is due Thursday, April 15th, 2021. Now, this can be a little bit confusing given the fact that there's been extensions and other types of things, such as the 2020 filing deadlines and possibly the 2000. But the first quarter of 2021 has not been changed. Now, note that we're applying this when you're thinking about this. You're typically thinking about people that are not W-2 employees. If you're a W-2 employee, you do pay your taxes during the year. But obviously the IRS has that done for you basically by forcing your employer to take the money out of your wages, and therefore it's done kind of automatically at that point. If you're not a W-2 employee, or if you have some other business type of activity, and more people probably do in these years than in prior years due to all the problems that have happened, you might have, some Schedule C businesses, many new Schedule C type of businesses, then you have to keep in mind that no one is withholding or taking the money out of your paycheck as the year goes, and you have to do that actually yourself, meaning you have to do the painful process of actually writing the IRS a check on a quarterly basis, or sending that payment, most likely, more probably, sending the payment in some kind of electronic type of format. Gets a little bit confusing here. So we're talking Schedule C type of businesses. We're talking 2021 taxes then, which you're not going to be filing the tax return for 2021 until 2022, because then you file the tax returns. But the IRS wants to be paid during the year. Why? Because if you don't, you'll be subject possibly to interest and penalties on that. Next question will typically be, well, how do I know how much to pay? Because I haven't even filed my 2020 taxes, and I don't know, they might be drastically different than prior years, and my whole kind of business structure or income structure is different possibly this year. How do I know how much to pay on the quarterly taxes? Well, you got to figure it out and just guess, basically, based on the prior year tax return. You might not have filed the prior year tax return due to the fact that they've extended the deadline for the filing requirements for 2020 as well. But they didn't extend the deadline for the first quarter of the 2021 payments. So you might be in a situation where you haven't filed your taxes for 2020, but you still owe taxes for the first quarter. And so usually in that system, you got to do your tax return in order to estimate what your taxes will be for the following year so that you can make the first quarter payment. If you're not in that situation, you still want to make some type of estimate so that you kind of avoid the penalties and interest. So be aware of that. A little bit tricky of a situation here with this first quarter payment. Also note that if you're new to having a Schedule C type of business, you want to be aware of the fact that you have to pay as you go on a quarterly basis, which you may not be used to because your employer basically took the money from your W-2 before that. So take that into consideration. Also take into consideration the self-employment tax, which is kind of like the Social Security and Medicare, which will have a substantial effect or impact and can be kind of shocking when you first look at that calculation calculated from a Schedule C type of business. So keep those two things in mind. Stay on top of the taxes. Once you get behind, it can be a little frustrating, and a lot of new businesses do that. They get behind because they're not used to paying the taxes in that way because they're W-2 employees. Okay, the extension to May 17, 2021 for individuals to file their 2020 federal income taxes does not apply to estimated tax payments. The 2021 Form 1040-ES estimated tax for individuals, there's a link to that here, can help taxpayers estimate their first quarter tax payment. Income taxes are pay as you go. There's a link to pay as you go here. So that basically means that you have to pay them in the year that you're accumulating them, even though you have no idea what your actual tax bill will be, because it's a progressive tax system, which is way too complex to know what the actual tax bill will be until you actually file the tax return at the end of the year, but you still have to make some kind of estimate somehow. And you usually do that based on the prior year tax return, which you may not have filed yet because, you don't need to because there's an extension. So kind of funny situation, but you still need to kind of figure it out in some way. And the goal here, why? To avoid penalties and interest. So this means by law, taxes must be paid as income is earned or received during the year. Most people pay their taxes through withholding from paychecks, pension payments, Social Security benefits, or certain other government payments, including unemployment compensation. Most often, those who are self-employed or in the sharing economy need to make estimated tax payments. So that means if you're a W-2 employee, this is done for you basically because the IRS makes you file a W-4 when you're an employee, and then the employer takes your money as you earn it and you never see it, and it becomes like you don't have to ever worry about it. You don't really think about it. But if you transfer from that to being self-employed, you do have to think about it. You have to do the painful process of writing a check or sending money directly to the IRS. And that can be difficult to get used to doing. so you got to get used to doing that if you're going to be self-employed. So similarly, investors, retirees, and others often need to make these payments because a substantial portion of their income is not subject to withholding. Other income generally not subject to withholding includes interest, dividends, capital gains, alimony, or rental income. Paying quarterly estimated taxes will usually lessen and may even eliminate any penalties. So exceptions to the penalty and special rules apply to some groups of taxpayers such as farmers, fishermen, casualty and disaster victims, those who recently became disabled, recent retirees, and those who receive income unevenly during the year. That last one can be one of the more complex type of situations, meaning if you have seasonal type of income, you might not have to make even payments throughout the year. So if that applies to you, you might want to take a look at that and get some more information on that seasonal type of income disbursement. So see Form 2210, underpayment of estimated tax by individuals, estates, and trusts. There's a link to that here and its instructions for more information. How to pay estimated taxes. So now that they've convinced you that you need to do it, this is how you can pay. They have a lot of options for you to give them money, which is actually kind of good because before I remember a time when it was actually kind of difficult to pay the IRS, and then they basically charged you penalties and interest because you didn't pay them. And it's like, well, I tried to pay you, but it was hard, and like you gave me the money back or something, So it's actually fairly easy to pay them. They got a lot of options here, which is actually a good thing. So we have the Form 1040-ES, estimated tax for individuals. There's a link to that here. It includes instructions to help taxpayers figure their estimated taxes. They can also visit irs.gov/payments. There's a link to that here. To pay electronically, the fastest and easiest way to make an estimated tax payment is by using the IRS Direct Pay, the IRS To Go app, there's links to those here, or the Treasury Department's Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, the EFTPS system. There's a link to that here. Obviously, they would like to use the electronic filing system. That would make sure that they get the money faster on your end. It makes it easier in that you can basically see that the payment has processed faster. But on the bad end, I mean, if you just send them a physical check, then it doesn't really matter if they don't, on your side, it doesn't really matter if it takes longer for them to cash it, take it out of your bank account. And, they could take all the time they want to take it out of my bank account. But even still, the electronic payments might be the way to go because, one, it'll make the IRS a little bit happier. That's what they're trying to get you to do. And then, two, you can kind of confirm the payments more quickly that way, which is nice. So for information on other payment options, visit irs.gov/payments. There's a link to that here. If paying by check, taxpayers should be sure to make the check payable to the, quote, United States Treasury, end quote. You want to make sure that you have the check in a format that it's going to the right place and it's applied to the right period. Make sure that it's applied to the right period as well, because if it's applied to the wrong period, for example, if you apply it to a prior year, the IRS may actually give it back to you, so you didn't pay them, and then charge you basically penalties and interest on it. So it's not good if they can't process the check, because what's going to happen is, once again, they'll charge you penalties and interest on it. So make sure that you get the thing processed, because your goal is to avoid the penalties and interest as much as possible. So Publication 505, Tax Withholding and Estimated Taxes, there's a link to that here, has additional details, including worksheets and examples that can be especially helpful to those who have dividend or capital gain income, owe alternative minimum tax or self-employment tax, or have other special situations. So you can take a look at that form. Tax software, highly helpful with this. If you do your 2020 taxes, then hopefully the software will give you information to basically help you out for the estimated taxes for 2021. That might depend on the software in terms of how helpful it will be to do the estimated tax help situation. But software typically good thing to use. So irs.gov assistance 24/7. Tax help is available 24/7, 24/7 on irs.gov. The IRS website offers a variety of online tools to help taxpayers answer common tax questions. For example, taxpayers can search the interactive tax assistance, tax topics, frequently asked questions. There's a link to that here, and tax trails to get answers to common questions. The IRS is continuing to expand ways to communicate to taxpayers who prefer to get information in other languages. The IRS has posted translated tax resources in 20 other languages on irs.gov, irs.gov, the IRS website. For more information, see We Speak Your Language. There's a link to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.